Have you ever felt like you were drowning in all of the shoulds of life, stuck in this cycle that feels like it's going nowhere, but wondering, how am I going to break free of this? You are not alone. In today's real and raw conversation with my friend Bree Pear, we dive into those moments when life feels overwhelming and explore practical ways to shift the narrative. This episode is all about getting unstuck and reclaiming your path. Trust me, you do not want to miss it. Hi, friends. Welcome back to Radiant Womanhood Podcast, where we dive into tips and strategies and stories that empower women just like you and just like me to live their most productive and fulfilling lives. And today, I am really excited to introduce you to a special guest. And this is actually someone that I've known kind of in the online world for a really long time now. And it's the first time, I want to say face to face, but we're still online, but it's the first time we've come together face to face. And I'm really excited to have Bree Pear with me. She is a coach for content creators, the founder of Thrive, which is a podcast, but also so many tips and things online with her mission to educate and empower female entrepreneurs, helping them build brands that give them financial freedom and the flexibility to live a life on their own terms, which is something that we love talking about here. So Bree, I am thrilled to have you on today. Thank you for joining me.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
I feel like it's been a long time coming. I actually think one of the first times we connected, I just had this thought. I think I wrote a blog post for you years and years ago about lemonade, but it wasn't really about lemonade. Now,
oh my gosh.
Now I need to go back and look it up.
Oh my word.
Sometimes, like when blogging was the thing, we didn't even have podcasts or know what that was yet. Probably barely social media.
Right. Instagram wasn't a thing.
Right. And now like that just popped in my head and I think I need to go look that up. But anyway.
Oh my gosh. Yes, we do. What a walk down memory lane. Just those OG blogger days and what that looked like, and just, oh my word, I don't know about you, but like I just remember like the hustle and just like constantly cranking out content, which I mean is similar now, right? It just is a different
format.
Right. Yeah, a different format.
We just do it a little bit differently now, but really, I mean, it's in a similar way instead of typing it out. And I have to say that was something I loved. So even like growing up in school, I know it sounds a little weird, but English was a subject that I liked because I was able to write, and I still have, my parents had given me recently a box of this like books that I wrote when I was, 10, or just different things, and realizing that sometimes our passions really, they always do. You just don't always see them so long ago. And that's, I think, why blogging appealed to me. It was kind of the weaving of stories through words. And even though I don't write as much now in that format, even though I still do, I mean, we kind of do it this way now. And
right. You're still telling stories. It's just like through the podcast and through emails and
and bringing people along kind of on that journey. But that's, I think, some of what I like about what I do here, and really wanting to let other women know, like, yes, those passions are in you. And a lot of times they started at a young age. So if we can kind of break ourselves off from, I was just talking about this the other day, like, I think sometimes we feel all the pressure of the shoulds, like I should be doing this and I should be doing that, or I need to, and forget to kind of think in the coulds, like, what could I do, or what would I do if I didn't have all these other pressures on me? And a lot of times that goes back to like when we were kids. What are the things that you did do just because you could?
Oh yeah.
And I think that gives a lot of insight into now what are the things that light you up. A lot of times it's those things that you did just because you could.
That's so, I love that, because I was thinking about this the other day. I've been wanting to pursue like some of those like fun passions again, just things that like picking up painting just for fun, or I'm like, oh, I should start knitting again, like it's cozy season, that sounds like fun. And my brain always wants to like put some logic behind it of like a reasoning, like, oh, well, you do this, what is it for? What are you going to use it for? Or like, if you sit down and paint this, well, like, what are you going to do with it afterwards? And it's like, my brain doesn't want to let me just create
Mm.
for the sake of creating sometimes. It's like, oh, well, those shoulds. If you do this, then you should be doing this with it, or
It
you should be
should have
doing
a
this.
reason, or it should benefit you or someone else in some way. That's really
Yes.
good. But it does. I mean, I think that's what I'm coming to find is even those things that we can't necessarily clearly define as this is the ROI or,
Yeah.
whatever, put that on it. I mean, just like you said, creating for the sake of creating actually stirs up more creativity. It's almost like exercising a muscle.
Exactly.
And it's not always easy. And sometimes it's painful, especially when you're starting, because you're not good when you're just
Right.
starting something. But it actually leads to like being able to do that more and more and do it confidently. That's something that we talk about here. Confidence isn't something that, it's something that's earned because think about it when you're walking, you don't just start walking well, but you have to do it to be able to walk well.
Yeah.
And then now as adults, you can walk and do everything else pretty much at the same time because it's just second nature. There's confidence in it, but it's because you've done it enough. But I think, well, that's good. Just like you said, that some of those things that are fun to do or light you up just for the sake of, I could do this because it brings me joy or it brings me peace. That really is actually, there's a lot of benefit and freedom in that.
I think there's something that like is fulfilled when you let yourself do it as well that does trickle into other aspects of your life. So whether it is, your business or your job or even motherhood, I think, letting yourself have fun with some of those passions, it does release some type of chemical, I think, in your brain that like helps you relax and helps you have more fun. And like, think about like, why do we have all of these like brilliant ideas when we're taking a shower, right?
Yes, exactly.
There's like something there that triggers as well. Like when you let your brain relax a little bit and do something for fun, you'll just spontaneously think of something brilliant that's going to make a difference.
Absolutely. I don't know if you do vision boarding or anything like that, but I have actually a podcast episode on it and a few blog posts about it. I used to have workshops on it. So it's something that I definitely very much do. And that's always what I talk about. And for me, I do bring up the shower because that's where mine comes. Some people is different places, maybe on a walk, but it usually is a place, just like you said, your mind kind of disconnects from the overthinking usually, and you give yourself space and peace to just be. And a lot of times ideas will come to you or breakthroughs, maybe on something you were thinking about it, but then you took a break from that and whatever. And that, like you said, that's when the brilliant ideas come. A lot of times I'll get out and I'm like, I need to go find a notebook or write something down before I forget all of this because I'll have, answers to this. Or usually I'll think about all the things I should have said instead of what I did. Yeah. Like, that would have been better, but that's okay. Yes. But that's so good.
I completely agree.
I wanted to ask a couple questions too, just about like what you do, because I know your heart is really into coaching and empowering content creators and really just women in their businesses and what they want to build. And so I just kind of want to ask, like, what inspired you to really start that? And is there any, I guess it's probably hard to narrow down into like these one main things, but if we were to walk away today and say, okay, this is something I want to pursue, what are a couple of the main things that you would say, this is how you can overcome a couple of these challenges you might face, or these are maybe some of your first steps that you should take?
That's such a good question. I was doing a coaching call yesterday, and it's always funny because like sometimes it's like you have like group calls and there's either a ton of questions, and they always kind of seem to have a certain focus. I don't know. It's like something's in the air or something, and everybody's like, oh yeah, I have a question about that too. And yesterday, so much of it was like things that we were talking through were so much of like getting out of our own way and like really allowing yourself to go for it. And I think that's something that stops so many people. And like when I look back along my journey of like why I've been doing this and what has like ever stopped me from doing something is just overthinking and like it ties into everything we've been talking about so far, like the shoulds. Oh, well, I should be doing it this way or I should be doing that. And I think in this world of, everything is just at our fingertips and content is just constantly coming at us, it's so easy to get locked into those shoulds or, oh, if I need to do it, if I'm going to do it, it has to be done this way. Or if I'm going to do it, I have to do it this way and it has to be perfect and all of these things. And really, I think what has helped me along the way is just being consistent and not giving up on myself. And if I, could just go back in time and tell myself to keep doing one thing, it was just be to like, don't stop believing in yourself. Like there was always this thing in me of like, probably stubbornness of just like, no, I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to keep pushing and I'm going to keep doing something. And, when I started this business, I didn't think of it as a business. I mean, we started Thrive as a once a year conference for bloggers back in the day. Back in 2015 was our first conference. And coaching full time and doing this full time and, working with content creators is not something that I like started out thinking, like, oh, this is the end goal. 10 years down the road, I want to be doing this. I had no idea. I just, I wanted to connect with people. I knew that I wanted to empower women in particular to be able to build businesses and to have resources to help them along their journey. That was it. I wanted to, provide that to them in some way. And so whether that was me talking with them one-on-one or whether that was me, hosting a conference and having other women like you, like come in and like speak to empower them and teach on what you do, that was my way of being able to help. But along the way, that is still at the core of me. That's still like the thing that like lights me up and pushes me every single day to, on those days where it's like, oh my God, this is so freaking hard. I'm exhausted. My kid kept waking me up last night, like all the different things that come at us unexpectedly that we can't control. The thing that keeps pushing me is like, okay, well, if I release this podcast, it's going to help someone. Or if I write this email, what can I say that is going to help push them this week to be able to keep going and to keep trying, right? So much of it is that mindset of like, we have to keep going, we have to keep trying. And how do you instill like faith in somebody, right? Like for them to believe in themselves. It's so hard. But like, I don't know. So I guess where I'm going with all of this is like, like you were saying, like, what are those things that you can now look back on like through childhood or over the years, right? That has kind of been a constant. And looking at that, and I think there is something so powerful when you do that. I think sometimes we can feel a bit lost or like we don't know what we're meant to be doing and what our purpose is. And if you can find like just pause, I think pausing is like one of the biggest things and one of the hardest things.
It is.
Is to just freaking pause. And to look back and like, let me do a little digging. Let me figure out what is that common thread that I can recognize even over the past 5 years that like I keep coming back to.
Yeah. I think that's so good and kind of right on for, I think all of us. I mean, I do have that question come to me often, even from our listeners, and they're like, I'm really excited by this, but what do I do? How do I move forward if I don't really know what I should be doing? Like, I know I want to do something and I don't know what that is yet. And I think just like you said, the pause is so important. And yet that's one of the hardest things to do because it really is easy to get overwhelmed in the shoulds. And like you said, with everything on social media, telling us, okay, let's set up this. And I mean, I'm a huge proponent of routines, but it doesn't mean my routine is, even though I share it, what you should be doing. You should be finding something that works for you to open you up
Right.
to all of the coulds, you know? But I think when we see, okay, this person is successful doing this and this person is successful doing this, and then it kind of almost begins to feel like a weight of,
Yeah.
um, I should be doing that too, then, or I should be doing this thing or that thing, even if it doesn't align with, I think the word you used was kind of what's at your core. And I think that was
Yeah.
such a good way to look at it and see it is what is at my core. And sometimes we don't know until we take that pause and until we take a moment and really just let our mind go, which really I think circles all the way back to like the shower thing. Why do
Yeah.
things come up? Why do we think of things in the shower? Because a lot of times we just let everything go. Is the hot
Mhm.
water, everything's running, and we're able to just pause for a moment because a
Mhm.
lot of the things in the shower we can wash without really thinking about that. So it gives our brain a chance to just kind of pause and rest. And then all of the other stuff that's in here begins to come out.
Yeah. I mean, do you think too, like, our inner voice sometimes gets muffled by all of the things that we have on our plate and that we do have to take care of and we have to do. And so there isn't a ton of time for us
Mm-hmm.
to just like let that come out, right? It's like,
Right.
okay, as soon as you and I get done recording this podcast, I know both of us are going to go look at our to-do list and we have like a list of things that we have to go and get done today.
Yes.
And then, do that before the kids are done with whatever they're doing, right? And it's just like
Mm-hmm.
nonstop until bedtime. And then it's like, okay,
And
now
then we
what?
have
Let me just and so it is so hard just to pause. I think that's why, those moments in the shower are like you don't have to even think
And-
about anything, but yet,
Mhm.
nobody hopefully is screaming at you on the other side of the door for
Which happens
something.
also.
Yes, or
Right.
you're not on your phone or,
Mhm.
all the different things like it's able to be a silent moment.
Yeah.
And then your
I
brain
think
is
it's
able to
important
relax.
to find ways to create those moments because something I'm
Mhm.
realizing is obviously, yes, there are non negotiables in our schedule. And mine looks different than yours, but
Yeah.
we both have kids. So there are non negotiables as far as, for one, things that we do to earn an income for our family,
Mhm.
a job, work, things that we do for our family and our kids. So, I mean, yes, there's laundry. Yes, there's food. Yes, there's cleaning up. There's taking care of kids. There's things in every season of our lives that are non negotiables. Like, this is what we
Right.
do. Most of it I love. And I'm also looking at it in different mindsets. Sometimes I have to switch my mindset. Like, yes, we have dishes because we were able to feed our family, today or this week. And it's a beautiful thing. And looking at it in a different way than, oh, there's dishes again. I think a mindset shift is huge there. But then there
Yeah.
are times, I mean, we really, I think a lot of times have trained ourselves to fill in the small moments, the little moments we have with these little quick dopamine hits, like scrolling social media,
Yes.
which is a dopamine hit, but it also affects us negatively and it fills our time to where we don't have those quiet moments. And that's something I'm actively working on changing, like finding ways to actually take this out of the equation for a period of time. And a lot of my work that I do is on, a device as far as messaging with people or posting or creating content. But there are also times that I do find myself, I mean, I think lately it's been called doom scrolling, but just filling a little bit of those voids because maybe I do feel a little bit tired or I do feel overwhelmed or I don't want to think. So I'm just going to go, and we've trained ourselves to have those dopamine hits and go back for it again and again. And it really takes kind of an untraining to step away from that and find the quiet times.
And it is a muscle in itself of like, it is a conscious thing to do to not pick it up. And I'm 100% will admit I am like in that bad habit right now. And even recognizing it and talking to myself like, oh, you're just like almost like a numbing thing or just like a quick, like, oh, it's easy. Right. And it is like a muscle you have to train of like, okay, what could I do instead? And even making those little things like even easier on yourself. Like, let me take 5 minutes to set myself up for the next time I
Yeah.
have a few minutes to do something different, or even writing a list of like different things that I could do instead. And it's
Yes, that's
again,
so
it's like
good.
a training of your brain of like, sometimes we have to like visually see like, okay, here's things I could do in 7 minutes instead of
Mm.
doom scrolling. And sometimes,
Yes, that's so
sometimes
good.
we just, that's just what happens, and that's what it's going to
Yeah.
be. But if we can make that not the norm and not the
Yeah.
default. I was just talking
That's it right
to
there. The default. What's my default? That I always go back to that, or
yeah,
am I setting myself up for success in another way? That just reminded me of this phrase called mise en place, which is for chefs. And when they are cooking or they're preparing, they get everything ready and everything set up. So then when it's time for like the main event to cook, so
yes,
I think the translation is almost literally like everything in place or something like that.
yeah,
But what you said, it just popped that in my head of that's such a good way to help break an unhealthy habit, is set yourself up for a better habit instead. Because it is like, if we don't have an idea already, maybe of what we could do or a
mhm,
place set up for a quiet moment, then when that time comes and you are tired and not really feeling it, you just go back to the old habit. Okay, so let me grab this and
right,
scroll, or let me do this. And a lot of times it is a quick dopamine hit, but then it compounds those feelings of inadequacy or not enough, or they're doing that and I'm just sitting here doing this and all that, instead of like taking that out of the equation for a minute and setting myself up for, okay, let me just have a moment to put my legs up on the wall. That's something
right.
else I've been doing. The legs up on the wall
It feels
and read
innocent
something,
to
or
just grab your phone. It doesn't feel like in the moment. It's like, oh, it's just a few minutes. It's not that big of a
uh-huh.
deal. But
Mhm,
what you said, like the compounding of it is what
mhm.
just makes it all like, oh, okay. After the end of, when you compound it over a week and you're like, oh, why do I feel kind of just even more drained than normal?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
And,
think that's
and the
really
other
good.
thing too is like, you have to set yourself up for success before it gets to that moment, right? Because when
Mhm.
you're in that moment where you're like, I'm ready to just sit and chill, that's not the moment when you want to go and like make that list and go and find other things that you're wanting to do, or remind yourself then. That's not the time. You're gonna
Right.
just like drive yourself crazy, be more exhausted. So it's like, yeah,
Exactly.
setting
Yes.
yourself
Because
up
have you
prior to it.
maybe it's just me, I don't know if it's multiple children mom brain, but I don't think it's just me. Have you ever felt those things where it's like, okay, this it would be a really good idea, or I want to try this, or this is good. And then you get to that point where maybe it's been an hour and a half and you finally got kids to bed, or, something draining and it's been long. It's been a long day. Maybe some comments came out that set you off this way. And then also the kids had a whatever day at school, just different, all these things.
Mhm.
And then it happens and you're like, I know that there is something I was going to do, but I literally cannot remember
Mhm.
what it is.
All the time. All the freaking time.
So
Oh
then
my
it's
god.
like, well,
Or
I
that
guess
you
I'll just
get
go scroll on
there.
my phone then.
Yes, or that I'm like, I had a brilliant moment, but now it's like it just kind of is dulled because I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
all the time. Oh my gosh, I did it
Mhm.
yesterday. I messaged a friend that morning before all of my meetings, and it was one of those things like I love my calls. I love my clients, but sometimes I'm like, "Oh, I really am just like feeling that creative energy and I want to just like
Yes.
hermit and create." And I couldn't. And so I texted a friend that, and she's, we were chatting or whatever. And then I come back at the end of the day after those calls, and I'm like, the calls were so good, but they drained me and now I've got nothing. And I was
Mhm.
like
I mean, they do,
sad.
because you're putting out the whole time. You're putting yourself out there and your ideas and energy, and it
Yeah.
is. You have to be able to have the time to nourish yourself after that.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
yes.
Oh yeah, yeah, it happens all the time. And that's just, that's part of it. That's part of
Mhm.
what we do as part of entrepreneurship and
In life.
being in life. That's what I was going to say, is just like being a multifaceted human, of
Yeah.
having all of these different things, that we're not just entrepreneurs and nothing else matters and it's fine. right?
Mhm.
There's so many other parts of us. And I think that's something, people talk about, but yet don't talk about is just that fact of like, not that there's just so many things on our plate, but like, how does it feel in between those moments? And that's one thing that I really have to like challenge myself on is, if it's my day with my daughter and we don't have childcare that day, and I'm like, okay, we're going to go to the zoo this morning, and we'll go and be walking around the zoo, and my brain will be like, oh, I need to be doing this.
Mm.
I need to be doing this. I need to be doing all of these different things for work.
Oh.
And I'm like, no, I'm choosing to not have childcare at this time because I wanted to spend time with my daughter.
Mhm.
And yet, even though that was something I had chosen, I still was like in my brain as I'm walking through the zoo, pushing her stroller, like my brain's like, oh, you need to be doing X, Y, and Z for work. Oh,
Yeah.
like are you
Yeah.
wasting time? Like all these things. And so it's also like this, how do we stay present
Mhm.
through it? Right? Like
Mhm.
how do you stay present when you are at work and that compartmentalizing, right? And to get the
Yes.
and not worry about all the other things. And then when you're with your kids, to be present and not be
Isn't
thinking of
there.
like, right, of all the things that you need to do for work.
Mhm.
And I think when I do that and I'm able to like really be mindful and present in what I am actually working on, I feel like that does relieve a little bit of stress for me and helps me not want to default to the doom scrolling. Do you ever feel like that?
Yeah. Yeah. That makes
Like it
sense,
gives you more
definitely. And I
energy.
I I feel like it's a really common thing. I don't even think for women in general, I think for everyone, but I do feel like women kind of tend to do this with everything in life,
Yes.
it's work and
Yes.
it's family and it's kids, and we bring it all together. And I don't think it's something that we can just solve. It's almost like I've heard it this way. Sometimes there are problems that you solve, so then it's like done, black and white, this and this.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it's attention to manage, and kind of the difference between the two, it's like a flow, kind of a little bit more of attention, and say, but really making the choice and the decision to say, I am going to be present. I am going to not check my emails when I'm spending
Right.
time with my family, or log into social media, or maybe even just put the phone away completely so that
Mhm.
I can help myself be present here. Because I think when we do have, you mentioned it before, our multifaceted lives and these different, I guess, sides or angles almost to us, that's what makes life beautiful. Like, can you imagine if we didn't?
Oh,
And
yeah.
sometimes it feels like it's a stress to manage both, or to kind of go back and forth. But like, though you've seen those things of I'm living the things that I've prayed about, we've gone through loss in our family. And so, yeah, sometimes multiple kids is stressful, or thinking about that. And then a business and all this stuff is stressful. And then I remind myself, but how beautiful it is that we have this multifaceted life, that
Mm.
we do have these things in our family to manage, or the craziness and the chaos sometimes with multiple kids. And then also that I do get to create things that I love. And sometimes it feels overwhelming and almost like a burden. And until I remind myself, like, that's what makes life beautiful. If we didn't
Yeah.
have those things, that would be, I think, really sad. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
these are the things that
It
we've
can be
chosen to
both
pursue in our life.
it can be both hard and beautiful. I
Yes.
think, like we want it to be one or the other of like, oh, it
Mhm.
has to be either perfect or it's like
Beautiful all the
messy and
time.
right. And that's just not realistic. Like it can
Mhm.
be something that brings you so much joy and is wonderful and also causes you so much stress.
Mhm. Well, I mean, think about that too. Like we just went through the Olympics recently, and
Mm.
those that won, what an incredibly beautiful moment in their life.
Yeah.
But they're the ones that put in hard work. Like, it was
So much
hard.
work.
They put in
Yes.
effort and practice and training, and maybe not doing other things, because
Mhm.
this was a
Sacrifice.
pursuit that led to this absolutely beautiful thing. And really, that's what it is in our lives. We have a choice every day of what are the things that I'm going to pursue? What are the things that I'm going to put my time into? And when I do that, it brings beauty, even though, like you said, I really like that. It can be hard and beautiful both. And really, it is,
Mhm.
because you don't really have, I don't think, the beauty without the effort of getting there. The hard.
Yeah. Because it's like, oh, that was easy and we don't recognize it, right?
Right.
We're just like, okay, yeah, whatever, next.
Yes. Yeah. Yep, exactly.
Not that everything needs to be hard all the time.
No. It doesn't.
I think it's just acknowledging that, like, yeah, we're all dealing with juggling a lot of things and dealing with figuring out, like, how do we push pause and how do we take care of ourselves and be mindful in whatever moment we are in. And that when we're able to do that, you know, how much more of a fulfilled life can we live?
Mm-hmm. I think that's it right there. I think that's good. I think that's one of our biggest takeaways today is that just seeing life differently. I think a lot of times it's just taking that mindset shift. It doesn't always mean changing all the things we're doing. Sometimes it's just a little bit of shifting our mentality. And I think that's it right there. Like being mindful of that. Mm-hmm.
I think we often feel like, oh, if I'm going to do something, it has to be this big thing. And whatever it could be, right? It could be that you're wanting to work out more. It could be that you're wanting to make more money in your business. It could be, you know, so many different things. And often it is just a small shift that you have to make to see a huge difference. But I think that, you know, kind of going back to the beginning of what we were talking about with like that mindset and that belief in ourselves and why we're stopping ourselves is maybe we're making it to be like this huge thing where it's like, let me just start with something small. Like, what is something small that I could do today or this week that would make a big difference? And then when you look at it over a longer period of time, it's all going to add up.
Right. That's that compounding like we talked about. Yeah, that's good. And so in our choices today and each day, like what are those choices that I'm making that will add up to the beautiful? Mm-hmm. That's good. Oh, this was so good. Thank you, Bree. I'm really excited. Like, I mean, even for me, just chatting with you, do you ever have those chats where you're like, okay, I'm feeling this or feeling that, and then just kind of getting it out and then talking about it?
Yeah.
Walking away is like, this is good. It reminded me of the beauty, even in the hard, even in the overwhelming schedule sometimes, the beauty that's in it. So thank you. Thank you for being here with us today. Make sure to check out Bree Pear's Thrive podcast as well for more of this and conversations like this. We were just chatting. You said you added in these like second episodes each week that are just these quick little encouragements. And so I think that that's awesome to just get that encouragement, have it in your ear each day and build that beautiful life. So again, thank you, Bree. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me.